Hello everyone, today I am going over another one of my favorite SpongeBob episodes. Just outside of the top 3 of all time is Patrick Smartpants. This, to me, is the best Patrick appearance in the whole show, other than the top 3. But it's the best episode centered around Patrick. So, the plot of this one is that SpongeBob and Patrick are playing in Jellyfish Fields. Patrick goes through a sign, falls off a cliff, and then becomes smart because a piece of brain coral, spoiler alert, got replaced with his head because SpongeBob mistaked it for his head because his head fell off after he fell. Once he becomes smart, SpongeBob and Patrick just don't have fun anymore. This is another one of those episodes where nostalgia is a bit of a factor, but it's very little compared to what this episode does and why it's so masterfully crafted. I don't know how to feel about... Actually, I do know. I love Patrick in this episode. Switching up the status quo for him is very important. Once again, people say Patrick was flanderized in Season 4. He was not. Actually, I can go over why Patrick is good in Season 4. People point to Driven to Tears and Rule of Dumb as Patrick starting to go down. And I can make a case for both of those not being the start of his downfall. Because in Driven to Tears, both SpongeBob and Patrick are both collectively in the wrong. Same for Rule of Dumb. But that's for later. That's for another video. Back to Patrick Smartpants. So, after they leave Jellyfish Fields, SpongeBob and Patrick go... Actually, I'm going to call Patrick Smartpants because he and Patrick are totally different people. So, SpongeBob and Patrick Smartpants go into Squidward's house. So, they go into Squidward's house. And then Patrick recognizes a song that Squidward is playing. And then we get a gem of a line that no one talks about. So Patrick suggests a way to play the song that Squidward's playing. And then Squidward says, "I never thought of that." And then Patrick says, "That is because you rarely think." I already said this in my Frankendoodle video, but lines like this are funny because they're really just funny. It's in my top 10 Patrick lines. This episode also contains my favorite Patrick line, but we'll get to that in a moment. So Patrick is just appalled by Squidward's singing, or well, clarinet playing. Also disgusted by Squidward's saliva-filled clarinet reed. Which doesn't gross me out like other people, so yeah. His sheer look of disgust when he looks at it is genuinely hilarious. So Patrick decides he can't take Squidward's playing anymore and yells, "Find yourself a new mentor!" Okay, so SpongeBob says since he's free right now, he wants to go play. But Patrick says they're not compatible anymore, which reminds me of a funny line from Wander Over Yonder. Yeah, crazy that an underrated channel like mine is referencing an underrated show like Wander Over Yonder. But still, Wander Over Yonder is such a good show. Why did Disney cancel it? But anyway, we're on Nickelodeon that also cancels show. Why? What? Anyway, Patrick says they're just not compatible anymore, and then he leaving SpongeBob crying. If you thought that scene was sad, wait until the next one. But Patrick goes to Sandy's tree dome, and then they get along well at first, because once Patrick starts getting conceited, he starts mocking Sandy's intelligence, or he thinks lack thereof. So SpongeBob witnesses this as he went to Sandy for professional help, as he would put it. So he sees all of this going on. So Sandy tells Patrick to leave. As Patrick leaves, he says, "I was only trying to help." And Sandy says, "I don't need your help, Mr. Know-It-All. I liked you better when you were a barnacle head." That's pretty funny. But the next scene is not funny. Pretty sad, actually. So we cut to SpongeBob on his couch, in his TV, lighting up his dark living room. Him crying while Kamakani B plays in the background. Kamakani B is my favorite SpongeBob track. Yeah, I'd just like to mention that. It's House of Horror would be second, and Grass Skirt Chase, Sponge Moger, and March of the Aliens would all be candidates for number 3. Also, Dom Bubble and Drunken Sailor, not the post-movie one, the one that started in Selling Out. Yeah, that version. So but anyway, we see that SpongeBob and Patrick are both collectively crying over the loss of each other, which SpongeBob says, "I never thought I'd lose my best friend. How can I compete with geniusness? Not geniuses, geniusness." And then we cut to Patrick, who says, "Surrounded by knowledge, but no one to share it with. No one I can call friend." Who's that old chap I used to run with? SpongeBob. Maybe Patrick is my friend in my memories. And then Kamakani B just goes popping off. The glory days. Why have we grown apart? And that's the saddest scene possibly in the whole show, but it might get upstaged by my blank pick. Let's just say that. But anyway, this episode, wait, we're not concluded yet. So after that scene, we cut to the next day, which Patrick Smartpants kidnaps SpongeBob. And then SpongeBob says, "Patrick, you kidnapping me?" And then Patrick Smartpants says, "Yes, I am." Also, before that, we get a little montage of Patrick trying to have fun again, which is creative. But anyway, they try to have fun, but Patrick just can't anymore. Until Patrick asks, "When did the fun go away?" And SpongeBob says, "When he fell off the cliff." And then Patrick recreates his actions from that day. So he falls off the cliff, his head goes into his body, comes back out, he feels no different, and then they find his old head, and I already said this, but they found brain coral, which is the big plot twist of this episode. And then that was the thing that they replaced with Patrick's head. So SpongeBob says, "Here you go, Patrick, your old head. Are you sure you want to give up being smart and sophisticated to be my friend again?" And then Patrick says my favorite line of his, "Knowledge can never replace friendship. I prefer to be an idiot." That line right there is my favorite line of Patrick and one of my favorite lines of the show. That line just says everything it needs to. So Patrick, and then SpongeBob says, "Not just an idiot, Patrick, you're also my pal." So they replace Patrick's brain coral head with his actual head. And then they go off jellyfishing once again. And then the episode ends. This episode is, once again, the best Patrick episode. The 4th place episode in my top 10 SpongeBob episodes list. I don't think it would be anything in the top 3, but I get where Luke Vaughn was going when they said it was their favorite episode of the entire show. I definitely get why someone would favor this one over any episode of the show. But that concludes my review. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Goodbye.